everyone, and welcome to the EMDR Maven podcast. I'm Julie Miller. I'm a licensed professional counselor and an independent addiction counselor. I'm an EMDRIA-approved basic and advanced EMDR trainer, an EMDR Institute regional trainer, and an EMDRIA-approved consultant and certified therapist. I provide basic and advanced training through the EMDR Development Center. You can learn more about that at the website emdrdevelopment.com. This is season 2 of the EMDR Maven podcast. We're going to be discussing the use of EMDR therapy in the treatment of addictions, both substance and process addictions. I'll be happy to discuss any of your questions here on the podcast. We'll also have some other EMDR consultants who specialize in this area talking about their work. I host an EMDR no-fee study group on the last Wednesday of each month, except for December, from 12 noon to 12:50 p.m. Arizona time. This group is for anyone who's completed the EMDR basic training, and we can talk about addictions there as well. So send me an email, and I'll be glad to send you the link to the Zoom room that we use for that consultation group. Again, you can contact me at jmiller4721@gmail.com. Rehna Becker is a licensed clinical social worker and certified alcohol and drug counselor and a trauma therapist. She's an EMDRIA-approved EMDR consultant and coach with EMDR Chicago. She specializes in complex trauma, addiction, and repetitive patterns of unwanted behavior. Her clinical focus is on high-risk treatment settings and post-treatment reintegration with clients who frequently return to a high-risk environment. She does individual and group therapy, clinical consultation, and curriculum development with a deep commitment to justice-informed care and systemic healing. Rehna's therapeutic approach integrates EMDR, internal family systems, attachment, and polyvagal theories. She's grounded in relational neuroscience and client-centered practice. Through her private practice, Lotus Therapy, she's based in St. Charles, Illinois. She provides individual therapy and consultation services while also partnering with Lighthouse Recovery to co-lead recovery programming for incarcerated individuals in the Kane County Jail. Her work in that setting focuses on trauma healing, emotional regulation, and shame resilience. Currently, Rehna is collaborating on Project Strive, a trauma-informed initiative led by the Institute for Nonviolence Chicago and the University of Illinois Chicago. Project Strive provides EMDR training to mental health professionals working with individuals in high-risk, violence-impacted communities and includes a structured evaluation of short and long-term treatment outcomes. This work reflects her broader mission to expand trauma-informed care in marginalized and violence-impacted communities through research, training, and advocacy. Let's welcome Rehna Becker to the podcast. So very glad to meet you, Rehna. I'm glad that you're here and going to talk with us about the population that you work. It looks like you do a lot of different things, but especially talking about working with incarcerated individuals using EMDR therapy and treating addiction in that way.
Exactly.
So I just want to start with, how is it you ended up getting trained in EMDR? What made you think you wanted to do this?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. By the way, I love this. I could talk about it all day long. So I started in community. I really could. I started in community mental health, and when I was working with that population, some clients responded really well to talk therapy, right? And they just did well. We did all the things, created that safe space and empathy validation and worked through issues, and that worked well. But for some people, that wasn't quite enough, it seemed to me, and I didn't know why. So the minute I looked into that, it was trauma. That's what you would repeatedly find with individuals, a history of trauma. So I got EMDR trained actually right out of the gate. Pretty quickly after working there, I was so lucky. One of my colleagues was going to the training in Chicago, and she said, "Do you want to sign up?" And somehow I got signed up, and I went. And what I started to notice, we set it up, it was really cool. Because I was the only EMDR person, I would see, the therapist would see them for talk therapy, and then every other week they'd come to me for EMDR. Certain clients were sort of had done all the work, were feeling kind of stuck, and they would see me. And what I started to see was patterns of behavior, whether that was substance addiction or behavioral addiction, that was really prevalent with populations where people had a lot of trauma. And it was interesting because as I was talking to clients, they were kind of low key about it, didn't want to talk about it. And I started hearing this name, Nate Lanthram, who was providing some addiction treatment. And I said, well, why didn't you talk about it in intake? And they said, because oftentimes when you talk about your addiction in a mental health facility, you get sent out for treatment first. They say, take care of the addiction, then come back and see us.
Wow.
I thought,
isn't that something?
Yeah. It couldn't be further, from the truth. It's always
exactly.
And so that was kind of how I got into it. And then I pursued this person that was doing this wonderful drug treatment at Lighthouse. And less than 6 months later, he brought me on as a contracted employee, and he had just started a program in the Kane County Jail providing addiction treatment.
Nice.
So there you go.
There you go. And the rest is history.
Yeah. 7 years later, here I am.
Now you can't stop talking about it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of explains how you got involved in working with the population and getting interested in EMDR. What is it that you really enjoy in working with incarcerated individuals? What is it about that you enjoy?
Well, so many things. I think one of the biggest things that I really wanted to say when I knew I was going to be able to talk to you is I think there's a big myth out there with working with incarcerated people. You can't deal with trauma while they're in there, right? Yeah. The last thing we want to do when there's a group of individuals incarcerated is bring up trauma. And that makes sense. It's not a safe environment. People are under stress, and that made sense to me. But we kind of made our pitch, and it was kind of funny. My first day in the jail, we call it pods. It's a living unit. So ours, we have everybody in our living unit is in treatment, is in our recovery pod. You have to be in our recovery pod to be on our housing unit. And my first day in the job, I come in and I get cleared to security. Everybody's in their vests and guns and the whole thing going through the metal detector. And I start going down the hall and I hear the stop the trauma therapist. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think they're talking about me. And I kind of look and this woman comes running down the hall. She's like, stop. We cannot have you in here. And I said, what? No, I think I'm clear. And she's like, we cannot have trauma. We have a policy here. We cannot talk about trauma. We instruct all our mental health people not to talk about trauma with our people that are with our population. It's too unsafe.
Wow.
And it was valid. I understood where she was coming from, and we ended up having a wonderful conversation, and I explained what I did. Because they were afraid of violence and amongst each other, against the COs. And about a year after that, she was actually trained in EMDR. Because she saw how much it works. And just to give you like a little fun statistic, in our pod alone, in our recovery house, there has been, since we started our programming, there have been 0 suicide attempts, 0 increase in suicidality, nice. 0 assaults against any of the COs. They've had only 5 fights in 7 years, and only 2 of them were any sort of physicality, just fists. And to give you a frame of reference, Julie, that's on any other pod, we have 10 to 15 acts like that a month.
Wow.
This is 5 total in 7 years.
Isn't that something?
And yeah. So what we're doing is working.
It's working. Yeah.
I think
that's amazing. I love that somebody was running down the hall to say, hey, you can't be in here. Stop talking about trauma.
And she's wonderful. She's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you made a believer out of her. That's for sure. Because it's the trauma that's underneath all of this stuff that they're in prison for, including, drug use and selling and all of that stuff. That's what's underneath that.
All the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I think one of the keys, though, is the point is well taken, and it has to be done the right way.
Yeah.
It really, there's some key elements that have to be present in order to be able to actually work with trauma while people are in that setting.
Mm-hmm. So what are those key elements that you're mentioning?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is we do our programming. We run groups. I do groups and individual work, and so the number one thing that is key is safety. You have to establish safety on the pod. All right,
Yeah.
first and foremost. And so there's rules that people agree to. They have to, agree to the rules to be on the pod. But the truth is, people are coming over because of the benefits they get. When you're on our pod, you get to be a trustee, you get to work. We've got ping pong, we have a microwave, and we know that that's going to entice people to come over, which is what we want. They also get good time for successfully being in our program and doing the work. So we know that. No one's really like all in when they first come on. So we have to establish safety. And really, if you look at it, if you put it in EMDR terms, that's your phase 2 out of the gate. It's your phase 2. And
Mm.
so polyvagal theory is one of the things I start with right away. And
Mm.
it's their lingo. And I don't use the traffic light, I use red, green, blue. But right out of the gate, they're understanding their brain, they're understanding how it works, they're understanding their bodies. Group 1 with us is talking about all the things they're thinking about changing, the drugs, the alcohol. And for my population, it's really not just taking drugs, it's selling drugs. It's the hustle, it's the life, it's the gang life.
Mm.
It's they come all together. And so when they come in, it's like, what are all the things you're thinking about? So I have this big board and it'll be like aggressive behaviors, gang life, drinking, drugs, selling drugs, stealing, all the things, right? And then the first group, we're like, what's good about it? And they think it's a trick. They're like, wait a minute, where are the cameras? And no, 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 what's good about it? I feel powerful. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel needed. I feel relief, right? I feel like I fit in, like I am somebody. I feel connection. I feel family. I feel safety, right? That's all the needs that are met by these behaviors. And then we erase the behaviors and we talk about what human do you know that does not want these things? What human do you know that does not want to feel powerful or heard or safe or seen or fit in or like they are somebody? And that doesn't mean we continue doing the behavior, but it means first and foremost, and this is this is EMDR all day long, the AIP model, right? But first and foremost, we have to understand what is it, it's not the behavior, it's what is it giving you, which is a human need.
Exactly.
Exactly. And the tough part about the substance and the behaviors is they work really, really well in the short term. They're really effective in the short term.
Yes.
Right. That's
Right.
group 1. Group 2, we're doing polyvagal. We're understanding how is your brain interacting and why might we not be thinking about long-term consequences or empathy, or why might we not think about any of those things until we actually sit down, because consequences actually don't really work long term. We know that with our stats in this country with incarceration levels. So if I mean, my guys are in there repeatedly. They've been in there from the beginning, many of them, right? And so if consequences really aren't working, then why am I doing this? And they get it, they learn it, they love it, they feel empowerment because they understand
Mm.
who they are and what they're doing, if that makes sense. And for us,
Yeah.
one of I think there's 3 pillars for treatment, at least for me anyway. We have to have accountability, right? You got to have accountability, especially with my people. Like, what have you done? Because the thing of it is, Julie, is they're not innocent, most of them. I mean, I don't work with them because I think they're innocent. I work with them because they're not, right? But so the accountability piece is critical, right? But also the compassion for self. Let's really get to like, what was this about? Not because we're saying it was okay to do it, but we're understanding why we did it. And the third
Yeah.
is support, right? And so being in this setting, actually, as long as you create safety and do it the right way, can be ideal, because these guys are getting, if it's just too much accountability, there's often like a shame spiral. And if it's just too much compassion without accountability, you get your narcissistic behavior, your victim mentality, right? But if you get those two together with some support, that's how we can break cycles. And for
Nice.
some of these guys, the men and women, for many, many reasons, they would not have access to this without the forced sit down, because typically, just culturally, we're not going to go see therapists, or we don't have access or transportation or even the ability in my day to break out and see a therapist. Like, this isn't part of it. I don't even realize
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
anything's an issue. if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And
That,
there's a bit of a hammer that keeps their feet on, in the program, which is
yeah,
you're basically not getting out of here. This gives you privileges that again, that it's not every day am I going to be so excited and motivated to be part of this. It's like, well, I'd rather be here than someplace else. So that helps a lot.
that's such a great point. And I was just at the EMDR conference this weekend, and they were talking about the keynote was talking about dropout rates and stuff. And I was like, we don't have much for that exact reason.
Right.
For one, and even in group this morning, it's crazy. We were talking about so many of these guys who are missing their families and missing all this, but at the same time are saying genuinely, I had to be here. Like I'm actually seeing this. I'm learning. I'm doing the work. And they're really fine. Today, honestly, today was gratitude and I see it and I know I need to be here and I'm bettering myself. And even when some of these guys have a really tough time with missing their kids' birthdays or missing deaths or anniversaries of things, it's funny because I'll be, we're in the conversation, like group yesterday, we were talking about it. And and a bunch of the guys were really struggling with missing kids' birthdays and missing their children and feeling terrible. And
Mm,
comments like, I can't believe I'm repeating the exact cycle of my dad, right? And I was like, so, how was that, those conversations? And they start to talk about they're having their conversations with their kids. They're connecting before correcting, like they've learned in here. They're talking to their kids different. They're talking to their partners different, their parents differently, while in program. Changes are being made real time and they're seeing it. Like this stuff works. Like we really are starting to connect in ways
hmm.
that makes sense.
Yes.
And a bunch of the gentlemen were able to genuinely see this wasn't a bright side moment for me. This was a genuine, oh my goodness, it really feels like you are parenting for the first time. Because if you were out in the world, you'd be high or doing all the things. You would not, you're parenting right now. And it was really powerful. It was really,
Nice. Nice. So I'm hearing a lot of different sort of, if we were to kind of slice and dice this, I hear motivational interviewing and what you're talking about. I hear compassion focused therapy. I also hear about post-traumatic growth,
yeah.
by Richard Tedeschi and how important it is to see that maybe there's only, I kind of struggle with this sometimes with the population I work with, is that we might not be able to get some of these targets to a zero. There's
Hmm.
just so much stuff. But can I see the positive outgrowth of all those experiences? Can I even be grateful for those experiences? They happened. I'd rather they hadn't. And I'd rather that I didn't have to go through this, but I'm grateful for being where I am today because I've changed. I'm in a different place. My values have changed. My relationships have changed. All of that has changed and it's so much more positive because I had these terrible experiences, but I grew from them. And I think that's a really important piece with this particular population and the population I work with, which is first responders. So
Yeah.
really key stuff that you're doing there.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, everything you're saying. And I think even just bringing it to EMDR specific, right? When so phase two work, we're doing the resourcing. Like I was just saying, those examples with this, and you know this too, we're really resourcing real time. So of course we're doing the container and this safe space and it's a calm place, I guess it wouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing the traditional resources, but what we're doing a lot in there is resourcing real time, like right now, today, like tapping that in when you really can feel you were able to connect with your son and he listened to you, or in the fight, like in the kitchen, somebody took your dishes duty, and instead of getting in a fight, you were really able to use your skills, and we're resourcing that, right?
Nice.
We're really like real time doing all that
Yeah.
resourcing stuff. And another thing you were talking about, I think that's really important working with this population, doing EMDR is during our phase two, phase three. And when I say that, I don't mean activation of phase three. I mean, it's kind of teasing out those maladaptive beliefs, right?
Mm,
That is a critical piece of this with this population. It has to be in their language. And some of these things are actually, while they might be maladaptive to me, or right, they're actually statements of fact for them, right?
mm,
So sort of teasing some of those things out are really important. Like for example, in the beginning, somebody calling somebody the B word, right? In there, at first there is this, that is not allowed, and someone might go to aggression, right? And if we were talking about it in group, and I'd be like, what was that for you in that moment? You use your breathing. What was that part of you? We do a lot of parts work in there.
Nice.
Oh, it's beautiful. Parts work in there is just, it really allows them to have that accountability and the compassion for that part of you, especially with perpetrator parts and aggressive parts. And and most of them have them. So it's the help of a group. It decreases shame. If it was just me as a woman in there with someone who's on a DV case, that might present with someone, a spouse or another woman, that could be difficult or has been in the past. But when we start out within a group and we're just talking about that part, not in a celebratory way at all, but in okay, I did this. I stepped on her back and I broke it. And the tears start to come. And there's so much support from other people, not in the, yeah, you did it, but sometimes we go to these aggressive behaviors. And so it's accountability for the first time saying it out loud and that compassion piece. But here's why. What did you believe to be true? I wasn't seen. I wasn't going to be heard. Okay. And in that moment, I wasn't going to be seen. I wasn't be heard. And I lost it. And how old is that for you? How long has that been with you? When is the first time you felt like that? It comes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So really?
Absolutely.
And so for that, but for the B word thing, for some people though, the other thing about my population, which is interesting, is a lot of them are going on to violent areas. They're either going to prison or they're going back to communities where there's violence. So they really have to understand the environment they're going back to and those negative maladaptive beliefs. Are they maladaptive? Or do we need to tweak them? If that makes sense. Because if you're living in the street, it might be true you cannot be allowed to be called a certain name because that might be unsafe for you. And so we have discussions about that, about what's maladaptive. And then more importantly than anything is those adaptive beliefs. What are those? And what's realistic for you?
Can you give me some examples?
Absolutely, because we talk about it all the time. So it's rich conversation. So like I will not, it's what it comes down in my language is it's unsafe to allow myself to be called a B word. Like first it's, I will not be disrespected. I was taught, and a lot of this sort of the cultural beliefs and, all those things kind of come in, which is beautiful for us all. And they really identify, what does it mean to them to be called a B word about them? And it's like, it's disrespected. And I was taught you cannot allow yourself to be disrespected. Right. And when you really boil that down for most of the people that I work with, because frankly, it's not safe. Someone's going to get whooped over on you. And if they think they can, they'll take it and then they'll hurt your family. Right.
So then the negative belief is I can't be safe if I'm being disrespected.
Yeah, but that's right. And so then it becomes, okay, what do you need to believe? And so where it goes to is sort of this idea, it's all about my environment, right? I can protect myself as I need to, can be sort of the adaptive. The negative is I won't allow myself to be called a B. But the adaptive thing, first of all, it's discussion, because a lot of this is psychoeducation, right? If you don't have the information up here, we're not getting anywhere if we get to Facebook. So we're really talking about, okay, what's this going to look like? And a lot of times because I've polyvagaled, I've learned my nervous system, I can actually stay in a window of tolerance. There's more choice in my response. And I can see that this isn't a statement totally. Like in this program, it would be maladaptive for you to hit somebody because you would lose your time and you'd leave the program. So it's not a statement of fact totally. It depends on where you are. Right. And so that's sort of these realizations is how are they navigating their world? How does that suit them? And when it doesn't, I can choose another path that better serves me. Now, if they're
think that's great.
Yeah. If they're going to prison for 10 years, there might be some situations they're in.
Yeah. So I can choose my response.
Yeah.
In this circumstance, might not be safe, might need to do some kind of verbal thing or something. But in this setting, I can keep myself safe with a different response.
Thanks.
So have you used any of the group EMDR protocols, either for resourcing or for processing?
All the time for resourcing. I have for processing on a couple of occasions, and it's only when they've all gone through the same thing. So if a cell was tossed and I've done it in the community, use the GTEP stuff. But what we do is it takes months to do the phase 2 work. And when I say phase 3, like I said, I don't mean to activation, but by the time I do individual phase 4 work, we know what we're working on. We know where it came from. We've talked in a group setting about some of the memories, some of the experiences, what you've lived through. So we're locked and loaded and ready to go by the time we do the individuals. And if we have time, if you want, I do have some audio of a gentleman I worked with in group for months, and then 3 90-minute EMDR sessions, which is because we had done this work and the setup, he was just flying. He had an ACE score of 9 and a Philadelphia ACE of 5.
Right.
5 out of 5. So, and I knew he was resourced. I knew we had done a ton of parts work. He had a ton of self-energy, but I wasn't sure how much it was going to go as we got in there. And so we did contained at first. Really cleared out a bunch of stuff. I let him go much more, but I do a pendulum. Like I might let him go for a while and then I'll come back to target and pack. And it's a timing thing too.
Sure.
And then the third one, and I do this all the time in there, we actually did future template. And because he was going to prison for a while, and I was like, what's going to send you back? What's going to trip you up? And he had the thing that was going to trip him up. It was revenge for somebody that tried to hurt one of his kids while he was incarcerated. And he was like, this is just one of those things I'm wrestling with. Like, how am I a good dad if I allow it?
Yeah.
How can I keep her safe? So that our third one was future template. Yeah.
And then do you get the opportunity to kind of follow up with people and find out how they've been doing?
Oh, yeah. So this particular, he went to prison, he came back. This particular gentleman keeps in touch, does some of our IOP work, and he's actually going to college. He finished, he got his GAD, he's taken classes, and he wants to create a community outreach right out here and become a therapist. Like he's
nice. Wow. And get his EMDR training.
Yeah, for sure. And he's one of the guys, actually, when the sheriff found out he was in our program, the sheriff wanted to kick him out because he had so much history with this guy. I mean, he's like, there's no way, he says the name David is going to be in this program. We're like, hold on. The sheriff's a great guy. Hold on. This guy's really doing some work. And then he's killing it. He's doing
nice. So. Oh, I love stories like that, right? I mean, that's part of why we do this, right? To see people grow and change and really kind of get it.
Yeah.
And be able to live their lives the way they want to, much more adaptively.
100%. Or even with my pop, even realizing there's other ways of life. I mean, that's one of the biggest things is like they come in and this is sort of mind blowing. That's one of the biggest things we're doing, resourcing in that way is like the idea of what you could be. They've never, frankly, most of them have had the ability, the luxury to be able to just think about what I could be.
The other kinds of protocols with addictions, especially, addiction-focused protocols, the Detour, CraveX, feeling state addiction protocol, and so on, are those things that you would use with any of your clients there at the prison that you work at?
100%. So what I do a lot is I do CID, critical incident. I do that a lot. That's not addiction specific. I do a lot of EMD on little targets, present things if they're getting into kitchen. I will do specific protocols. I will do urges, but more urges to steal or urges to go back to that behavior, to get into the nonsense. And it's an important thing. So I'll do some of that, provided they really do. We've resourced enough where they have other ways to work through those urges, right? So I will do that. Yeah. But what I do more than anything is level of positive effect, but actually more of like where it's maladaptive positive beliefs.
Yeah.
So, right. And so that is something I do all the time. Like this, I am somebody when I sell drugs. Right. And that statement of fact, but like now we get that to I can be somebody without it. Or I am somebody when I'm a leader of this gang. I have family. But if they don't want that, that has to be a thing. It can't be me, it's theirs. I can find my people without it. Or whatever. Those maladaptive or their maladaptive positive beliefs. And that's the one that I think I work on probably the most. Other than CID, I use a ton.
So when you find that is dysfunctional belief, is it something that you go back and you find experiences they've had that taught them that? Or do you just specifically target the belief, or you find the experiences when they learned that?
I mean, if I were to go through the experience where they learned that, I think we'd be there, like, you know what I mean, forever. They've just learned that like from the beginning. So yes, kind of, but it's really more comes back to safety and power. It depends on like what's under there. So yeah, we will
Mm,
go back in specific targets of where I learned it, but it's really more about the feeling that I'm not safe, or I'm feeling I need to have power. I can't have power. I can't have power other ways.
yeah.
If that
Yeah.
makes sense. So we do start with it, but then, and where did you learn that? Or
Yeah.
oftentimes, to be honest with you, I'm starting with a present, like the present target, the present sense.
Yeah.
It will go back, but it always goes back to memories about the theme itself, not about the behavior.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It doesn't,
Yes,
when it goes
absolutely.
back, it's not about selling drugs. It's about needing
That's
to.
right. It's about what happened before that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so
Didn't
that's
just
why,
wake up one day.
yeah, exactly. So I didn't say that particularly clearly, but basically what I'm saying is there's not going to be a lot of history memories long term or early ones doing the particular behavior,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So it starts with that, but it becomes about the power, the safety, the control, the whatever.
Yes, exactly. And that always makes me think of the feeling state addiction protocol.
Yep. Yep.
So you're trained in
Yep.
that and you use that. Nice.
Absolutely, we do that. We
Great.
actually, and that's one I do a lot. I use a ton of that when we're talking about it in group, when I'm introducing the ideas of maladaptive beliefs, because we're talking about that in group. Like, what are yours? And so I present it different ways, and that one hits quite a bit. Like, just kind of, what are you trying to feel? You know, what the
Yeah.
social aspect of
Right.
it, and they can get it quickly.
Yeah. I mean, you that's like one of the first things you said was this exercise you do about what are the needs that are getting
Yeah.
met.
Yep.
And that's all about legitimate human needs, but the way you're getting them met is not adaptive, it's not useful.
Or at least is it for you? I mean, you're sitting in jail, and they 9 times out of 10, because at first, what they might today, honestly, today in group, he was talking about, gosh, this guy's great, but he was talking about how what gets him is when his girlfriend shames him about not being able to pay bills or whatever. And so when he's feeling shamed about that particular thing, I'm going to go steal some stuff because guess what? I can pay all the bills by tomorrow morning. Right. And so it's this idea of really getting at it's, of course, you want to pay the bills, but it's how do you want to go about doing it? Are we going to do it as fast and quick as possible and then get arrested and not be home for 6 months? Or are we going to, and they might say, although if they're with us long enough, they reach that, but they have to reach that themselves because it is rational. I mean, it does make sense. If I have to pay bills, this is the quickest way to do it that in the short term.
Yeah.
But then we're
Yeah.
not necessarily looking at all, like, you know, the moral aspect of it and the long-term
Yeah.
aspect of it and all those other.
When you talk about it, the stealing part that way, it sure sounds like addiction, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It all comes together,
Yeah.
all one. It's a lifestyle and it involves substances. And it was funny just because of coming on the program, we asked the question in group this week, like how many of you were on a substance when you committed the crime that you're on for here? And probably, 80% of them raised their hands, which isn't the problem. The problem isn't the alcohol, we know that, or the
Hmm.
drugs, but it really does come together. So when we talk about, because a lot of us is not just being sober, it's not coming back to jail, right? It's recovery from this life which involves substances most of the time, but involves stealing and selling and all the things. It's addictions can be replaced real quick, right? And so if I'm not, and they'll talk about it, I really wanted to get high, but instead I went and stole something and then I was fine. So they're interchangeable. And so
Yeah.
we're looking at the whole thing, which is really the human need that's getting met, not the specific behavior, but
Hmm.
linking it to the behavior.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. So that seems like have you found the feeling state addiction protocol really helpful in kind of reducing that urge or that interest in those kinds of behaviors?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm kind of like I kind of just go in and I'm not I know what I'm going to do as far as EMD, if I'm going to do a specific protocol or if I'm going to do EMD or contained or let it go. I almost never just let it go in there just
Yeah.
because of the complexity of I really don't, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Uh-huh.
And then if I do feeling state or whatever, we start with something and then it just kind of goes where it goes. But this idea of there's a difference between physical prison and an emotional prison, right? And that's one of the things we talk about a lot is when they're in there, the physical day one, if you were asked, and I've been in there 7 years now, so I might ask them, what would you rather have, physical freedom or emotional freedom? I'm like, physical freedom, obviously. I don't want to be here. After they've been there a while, and I'm not kidding, after I've been there a while, what they'll tell you is I would rather have emotional freedom than physical. Right? The emotional prison I have been living, and just helping people see that in an empowering way. But the good news about that, because there's usually like a mourning or a grieving, like how did I never know this until now? Or my life would have been so different if I had this earlier. And they'll be angry, especially if they're older. They're going to be mad for a minute, and that's okay, right? We're just with them in that. And now what? No matter what the emotion is, we just don't want to get stuck in it. So feel it, be in it, you're there, and then how do we move forward from this? And those are some real things, and we're just really meeting them where they're at, and what are those beliefs, and what are you going home to, and how can no matter what situation you're in, I want to understand your emotional prison, and I want to work with you to figure out how we can find emotional freedom for you, because you do have the key, but the therapist doesn't. What we have is space, right? To work with them to help them find their own key and see that they have the key.
Yeah. All that you're talking about, all of that is that post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
And that they're really being transformed. They're not being restored to what they were before. They're being transformed. Because you can't erase the past or its effect on you, but you can certainly transform it into growth and more adaptive ways of living. The healing can take place no matter what setting your clients are in. So I really like that. And your passion about this is infectious. Like, oh, that's so exciting. I wish I was working with that population.
Anytime.
Let's listen to David.
So as I said, this is a gentleman who, the sheriff is wonderful. And kind of earlier you were talking about how does someone do this in a facility? It's all about command. It's all about the sheriff. It's all about them. Our particular sheriff got with Lighthouse director Nathan, and they formed this. So it's all about working with the staff and getting in. But he did not want, the minute he found David was on the pod, did not want him. He has an A score of 9, history of all the things, foster, moved in and out, all the things in and out, an ace or a Philadelphia ace of 5. This guy has been incarcerated his whole life. And he came onto the prod and really engaged in programming. And so when you hear him, we did polyvagal, we did parts work in a group, all in a group. And then we did, when I say phase 3, I really don't mean activation, but we worked through all like the AAP model, what are the maladaptive, what are the positive, all that. And so you will see, this is him. And the reason he came, this recording came to me, I have to tell you this, Julie, is Hope Hasten was doing a training. And I think she was keynote at EMDR talking to trainers. And she asked me and a bunch of people, like, she was my mentor. She trained me. She's my mentor, a good friend. And she said, would you talk and really try and talk to therapists about you should be doing addiction training using EMDR in incarcerated settings? And can you do a little recording? And I said, I mean, I can, sure, but who cares? No one knows who I am. And I thought, well, what about if I have my partner interview a bunch of gentlemen that I have done EMDR on the pod, both while they were incarcerated and outside of it. So this is one of the interviews, and it was truly like, what do you think about EMDR? Would you recommend EMDR for other individuals? What has it done for you? And so this is him. He prepared it. My partner interviews him. Would you recommend EMDR? And so this is his explanation of it.
Great. Let's listen.
See what you think.
It's good. Okay. Just relax. It's so good. What's your name and how long have you been here?
My name is David, and I've been incarcerated for 19 months. What EMDR has done for me, it has helped me relive my past traumatic events and bad experience in the present without being re-traumatized. So I'm able to control my emotions instead of letting my emotions control me. I had 3 sessions, and in every session, I had to relive those experiences in my child body, reviewing them as my adult self, focusing on my internal experience. And I tell you, every time those images and those memories came up, I was as angry as I was when it happened. But what EMDR did, it helped me reprocess old memories, so I was able to make meaning of them. It also taught me how to interpret those old images into new images, feelings, and thoughts to navigate me in the future, restoring a sense of agency back into my life. During every session, I was on 10, but at the end of every session, I felt calm and relieved because it felt like those memories had lost its intensity. And all of a sudden, those events that happened to me were just something unpleasant that had happened to me a long time ago. That was then, and this is now. It's over now. I now know what happened to me, and I now know that it wasn't my fault. I was just a child, and there was nothing I could do. But the third session I had was the one that really turned my lights on. I had this image of 2 people, the old me versus the new me. That was always playing tug of war with each other, fighting for control. Then I had another flashback, and then I remembered that the old me, the younger me, always wanted to be loved and recognized. So what I did, I asked myself out on a date, and I told him, we don't have to fight anymore. We can dance. And that's when I took him by the hand, and I told him he was safe now, that I'm the one that will give you the love and recognition you deserve. And that's when I surrendered and let go of the rope. And I can tell you this is when I knew I put those episodes to rest. I started to sleep better. And for the first time in my life, I had a sense of inner peace. It was like I set myself free without even leaving my jail cell. I started giving myself a chance. I started believing in myself. I started stepping outside my comfort zone and taking advantage of any and every opportunity that presented itself to me. I started feeling alive. And there's the saying, once you kick the log, the river will start flowing. And that was my turning point. I found out who I was and what I was put on this earth to do. Thank you. So
fucking wow.
Isn't he great?
Wow. That's that's amazing. Look at that guy. Wow.
He's all that. He is that great.
That is amazing. It's like he read the EMDR text.
I know. I promise. That was him.
Wow. That was fantastic. Well, I'm so pleased for him.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's excited for life. And he's planning on going out there and being a therapist, right?
Yeah, he's in college.
He's the one?
He did his thing. He came out. He's got a job. He's at college.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, it gets me all pumped up. It's like, that is awesome. Maybe that'll be my next job. I don't know.
Yes, please.
Yes. Well, very good.
Of all the things I do, of all the things I've done, it's probably the most rewarding. Like I said, big hearts protected. Very grateful. And the change explodes. And no matter where you come from or what you look like, we're all human. We're all human. And you don't have to live their lived experience to be able to be there and help them see themselves. And I feel honored and blessed and every day. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your passion and enthusiasm.
Thank you.
It was so nice to meet you, and I'm so excited that you're doing this work and that there are others that are doing this work as well. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. This has been just an honor. So thank you.
Great. I'm so glad. And I hope to see you sometime around at an EMDR conference. Tell us how to get in touch with you.
It's mylotustherapy.com is my website. Okay. Email is rbecker@mylotustherapy.com. So you can send me an email. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You take care of yourself.
Bye.
Bye. That was great. Thanks to Rehna Becker for sharing her work and passion for EMDR with incarcerated individuals. So if you'd like to hear from someone you know who works with addiction using EMDR therapy, send me an email. I'll reach out to them and see if we can get a conversation going. jmiller4721@gmail.com. Join us again next time when I'm going to talk to Vince Kelly, an EMDR therapist and consultant from Iowa, about his work with individuals involved in drug court using EMDR therapy. See you next time. Bye for now.